Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the absolutely fascinating, totally unconscious shortcuts our brains take every single day. I mean, think about it. We interact with dozens of new faces and personalities all the time. And without us even realizing it, our minds are in overdrive, filtering information, categorizing traits, and basically painting a complete picture of a person before they've even finished saying hello.
We all try to judge a book by its cover, but science shows our brains often make up their minds in milliseconds based on a single trait. Really think about what that actually means. It means that before logic or reason can even step in to evaluate someone's actual character or competence, a deeply ingrained, almost automatic process has already laid the groundwork for exactly how we feel about them.
I want you to pause for a second and reflect on a recent everyday scenario. Think about a recent first impression you made. How did you judge your last job interviewer? Or maybe a new friend you just met at a get-together? Did you instantly feel they were warm and competent? Or maybe kind of standoffish? What exactly was that based on? Was it their posture, their clothing, or just their smile? Keep that specific interaction in the back of your mind as we act as behavioral analysts today, unpacking these common social dynamics together completely without judgment. Let's jump into Section 1, the millisecond mind. We're going to look at these quick judgments. Okay, let's dive right into this. To really grasp how fast these judgments happen, we have to look at the research of Willis and Todorov. And what they found is just wild. It takes a mere 100 milliseconds, literally a fraction of a second, for our brains to evaluate a complete stranger's trustworthiness, competence, and aggressiveness. This relies on a concept called thin slicing. It's where we use incredibly brief observations to assess really complex outcomes. In the literal blink of an eye, you are evaluating facial features, expressions, and posture, and making sweeping conclusions about a person's entire character. Moving on to Section 2, unpacking the halo effect. So the core mechanism pulling the strings here is called the halo effect. It's a cognitive bias where noticing just one single positive characteristic gently skews our perception of a person's whole character. For example, if you notice someone is highly attractive or impeccably dressed, your brain creates this mental shortcut. It unconsciously assumes that because they look good, well, they must also be kind, intelligent, sociable, and just a generally good person. It's essentially a perceptual distortion. That positive, unified impression radiates outward, bathing the person in a figurative halo of awesome traits that they may or may not actually possess. Now, historically, this concept has been building up for about a century. It was officially named back in 1920 by psychologist Edward Thorndike. He was doing a study on military officers and realized something strange. Their ratings of soldiers' intelligence highly correlated with their ratings of the soldiers' physiques. Crazy, right? Then, in 1946, Solomon Asch took it further, showing how core traits like perceiving someone as warm radiate out to influence our judgment of all their other traits. And by 1993, Embody and Rosenthal totally solidified that thin slicing concept we talked about earlier, proving that evaluations made in just seconds match the accuracy of evaluations made over much longer periods. Our brains are incredibly stubborn once that initial halo is cast. Up next is Section 3. The biology of beauty. Let's examine the evolutionary roots here. So, why on earth do we do this? Well, this brilliantly illustrates the evolutionary roots of our biases. Humans intuitively favor facial symmetry. Biologically speaking, constructing a human body from our genetic blueprint is a super complex process, and it's susceptible to tons of tiny errors. High facial symmetry indicates that an organism effectively overcame negative external influences during development. It basically acts as a strong biological marker of health and genetic fitness. Because of this, symmetrical individuals get what's called a beauty premium. We instinctively view them as better potential partners and, thanks to the halo effect, we just assume they are highly trustworthy and competent. And we see this with other physical markers too. Take body shape, for instance. A waist-hip ratio of roughly 0.70 in women is biologically associated with lower risks of serious illness and higher fertility, a really clear evolutionary marker of health. But, and here is where behavioral economics studies reveal something absolutely fascinating. When tested in cooperative economic games, highly symmetrical individuals, or women with that idealized 0.70 ratio, actually tended to cooperate less. Because they possess a marker of high genetic quality, they historically haven't needed to depend as much on sacrificing personal benefits just to maintain social favor. So the crucial takeaway here is that our initial assumption that beautiful automatically means good and cooperative can actually be completely backwards in reality. Which brings us to Section 4, the dark side, Horns. Time to look closely at the horn effect. Yeah, so if a positive trait creates a halo, a negative trait creates horns. The horn effect is the exact opposite cognitive bias. It happens when a single perceived negative trait, or flaw, triggers an entirely unjustified, sweeping assumption of bad character or incompetence. Basically, we unwittingly penalize people before they've even had a chance to open their mouths.
Let's contrast these two side by side to grasp the full spectrum. Under the halo effect, an attractive person is instantly deemed intelligent and sociable. But under the horn effect, someone whose clothing is maybe slightly scruffy might instantly be judged as careless or disorganized. Or, as several workplace studies have unfortunately shown, an overweight individual might be unfairly labeled as lazy. These snap judgments have absolutely nothing to do with a person's actual merit, their skills, or their moral compass. They are simply cognitive shortcuts our brain is using to save energy when processing new social information.
Let's move to Section 5, Real-World Consequences, and see how the impacts of these biases play out. Because these biological shortcuts don't just stay quietly in our heads, right? They bleed out into our social and professional lives with some pretty severe consequences. Research shows that in political elections, voters consistently reward physically attractive politicians, mistaking their good looks with actual leadership competence. In the justice system, studies reveal that physically attractive defendants often receive lighter, more lenient sentences compared to less attractive individuals who were convicted of the exact same crimes. And over in the corporate world, the halo effect leads to preferential workplace promotions and completely unfair job interviews, where highly qualified candidates are passed over due to the horn effect simply because they didn't look a certain way. Finally, Section 6, Outsmarting Our Own Biases. Here is how we start fighting back. The good news is, we aren't doomed to be controlled by our primitive brain wiring forever. To outsmart these ingrained biases, we just have to implement structured solutions. Step 1 is simply acknowledging the bias exists. Just knowing that the halo and horn effects are real allows you to pause and question your own gut reactions. Step 2, especially in business, is anonymizing applications. By removing names, ages, and photos from resumes, you force the focus entirely on actual skills and experience. And step 3 is basing decisions strictly on objective data, rather than a general feeling or a culture fit vibe, which, let's be honest, is so often just the halo effect in disguise. Understanding these biases really empowers us to treat people more fairly and to be far more analytical about why we feel the way we do when we meet someone new. So before you click away, ask yourself, who might you have unfairly misjudged today? Did this change how you perceive first impressions? Drop a comment below and subscribe for more deep psychology dives.